I'd never heard of this game until I saw this box in HMV back when it was closing down, and then it didn't close down? I don't know, for whatever reason we were there to cash in our outstanding HMV coupon cards that we had. And I saw this box and it really drew my eye. Like this. Look at this guy. It just screams epic. This is what you call considered overindulgence. There's a whole lot of bells and whistles, but it doesn't overwhelm you because the colors are very simple. It's white, gold, and silver, with some small blue gems here and there to tie it together. It looks a hell of a lot better than some other overindulgent fantasy armors I've seen in my time, and good lord, I've seen some. Anyway, I'm not here to be a pretentious art critic. I'm here to tell you that I bought this game because it looked cool, and I just wanted to spend my vouchers before they were gone. And wouldn't you know it, it was a very good purchase. It's a collection of really interesting and fun 90s PC games about strategy, kingdom building, money management, exploration, conquest, and heroes, with some choose-your-own-adventure style choices sprinkled in here and there. And when I say 90s, I mean like this. When are we gonna get a retro renaissance of this aesthetic? It's perfect. This game is kind of like a board game. You have a color, and start in a castle with a bunch of gold, resources, and a hero. The hero is your game piece. It's not you. And thank God for that. You take turns moving your heroes around the land, picking up treasure, claiming buildings, and fighting enemies, with the general goal of defeating all the enemy players by taking over all their castles and defeating their heroes in battle. Your heroes don't fight alone though, they have armies. Armies that you recruit from your town using resources that you find or mine from around the map. Resources that are needed to build varied buildings that create varying types of soldiers that have a set number of units for hire when built, and then slowly restock units every in-game week. Weeks that are made up of days which pass after you end your turn. Turns which allow you to move your heroes until they run out of mobility. Mobility which is restricted to an invisible grid, which is actually kind of annoying at times. It's hard to explain everything about this game in one go. Let's talk about the combat first. Shall we? When combat initiates, you're taken to a separate battle screen and... it's hilarious. The animations are goofy as hell. And hell is really goofy. But they have that aspect of logic to their art design that means that after a prolonged exposure to it, you forget how funny it is and just accept it. Which is a really charming attribute that I wish more things had. Like, you can tell they had a vision, and they executed it satisfactorily, and there's nothing technically wrong with it. But sometimes a wolf will do a funny sideways walk down the screen, and it's just adorable. Technical limitations are probably my favorite thing ever invented. I'm so sad they're gone. The combat is turn-based. The fastest unit goes first, and then the slowest one is the last guy. Each unit has a certain amount of grid spaces they can move. Flying creatures seem to have unlimited mobility, even able to go over castle walls during a siege. If you move close enough to an enemy unit, you can attack them. The stronger your unit is, the more of the enemy unit you will kill. See, the number under them is the amount of that unit. Meaning, if you gather up hundreds of a low-power unit, they can actually stand a chance of killing bigger enemies in one attack, thus not losing any of their own in a counterattack. Obviously, once the number of units decreases, so does their cumulative attack power, so getting the drop on enemies is the best chance to defeat them all with minimal casualties. Ranged units can fire across the battlefield and are particularly annoying against slower moving units that have to take many turns getting over to them. But a ranged unit can't fire if there's an enemy right next to them, which is why it's a great strategy when facing a lot of ranged enemies to get your fast-moving units right up in their face and cover as many of them as possible. Your hero that you command may also be able to cast spells during a battle. If your town has a magic guild, you can learn those spells by visiting that town, and as long as you own a spellbook. Warlocks and sorceresses own spellbooks by default, and knights and barbarians can purchase them from the magic guild. The spells you can cast are restricted to the ones you have in your magic guild, and you can upgrade the guilds to have access to more. or you can find spells in random locations around the map. The spells themselves are pretty standard fantasy things: lightning bolts, paralyze, buffs and debuffs, etc. The highest level magic guilds can learn you the Armageddon spell, which does less damage than you would expect, actually, and also damages your own troops, so it's not actually that good to use. It's a last resort. I could go on for ages about the intricacies of the battle system, but needless to say, there's a lot of strategy involved. What units you hire, how you position them, what heroes with what spells are riding around with what units, and who they're attacking with them. It's rich and deep and delicious, and I love it so much. Rich and deep is an explanation for the entire game, actually. Beyond the very strategic combat is all the resource management and information gathering. Many minutes will be spent thinking about where to explore, whether to buy a new castle or add buildings to an old one, wondering if it's safe to leave your castle empty to go exploring with your full force, therefore more likely to win battles out in the field, or to leave some behind in case an enemy rides out of unexplored territory and captures it right under your nose. It's like playing a game of Risk, but, not at all? Could you imagine how cool this would be if it was a fucking physical board game? Look at it! I would buy it. The unit types are also something to consider in strategy. There are 4 factions to choose from at the beginning. Red, the Knight. Green, the Barbarian. Blue, the Warlock. And yellow, the Sorceress. The heroes have names, but they all seem to be associated with those colors from the beginning, so whatever. Red, green, blue, and yellow it is. You can recruit all types of heroes from your castle with enough money, so it doesn't matter which one you start with. But anyway, each type of hero is associated with a type of castle and sets of units to recruit. Instead of listing them all, I'll be clever and show you a chart that I made. Shown are all the units each faction can buy. The units on the left are the cheapest and least powerful, and the ones on the right are the most powerful and expensive, but they're not all balanced. Note that the Warlock has 3 flying units, whereas the Barbarian and the Knight have none. The Sorceress and the Barbarian have 2 ranged units each, and the Warlock and Knight only have 1, and the Warlock's Centaur is absolutely pitiable, the worst ranged unit in the game. The Hydra is slow as the Ogre, but damages all adjacent enemies around it when it attacks, so it has more potential attackery. But when a Berserk spell is cast on a Hydra, it can, and has, attacked all my other units in one go, so it's a double-edged sword, depending on who you're fighting. The main point is that capturing enemy towns and gaining access to their unique units is very handy, and will give you a clear advantage, so it discourages you from staying on the defensive the whole time, which would be really boring, and kind of dooms you to failure actually. There was this one time where 2 of the other 3 enemy players were defeated, and then it was just one-on-one, me versus the other guy. But I wasn't prepared to fight an AI that had conquered and claimed 3 whole regions of castles, towns, and resources. There was no way I was going to be able to claw my way back up from such a position. Once my last town was lost to a siege, I had 7 turns before I would lose completely. It would be difficult, if not impossible, to beat such odds. With the amount of soldiers they could create and extra heroes they could hire with the amount of income they have, it would only be a matter of time before I perished. Thankfully, in this particular campaign, the goal wasn't to kill all the players, but to defeat the dragon guarding the center town, and I was just able to kill it and win right then and there with what I had. But that certainly illuminates the inherent problem with a game like this. Once you start losing, you can't stop. The more powerful you become, and the more land you continue to keep control of, the less possible it is for other players to stand any sort of chance, which can lead to some annoying circumstances. It gets to the point where if you mess up near the beginning of a match, there's really no point not restarting the match and trying again, because if you start off on the wrong foot, you're fucked. Having said that, I thoroughly recommend you get your hands on this. It's freely available on Abandonware, if you know how to set it up. If you don't know how to set it up and you would rather just pay, you can go to GOG, they have it there, or you could try and find the disc that I have. I don't know whether they sell it still. I've heard that the first in the series isn't the best, but I like it plenty. If the sequels here are vast improvements, then that's great. I have lots more fun to be having. Maybe I'll review Heroes of Might and Magic 2, 3, 4, and 5. I have them. Tell me if you would like to see me review more of the series. It's fun. But as for now, I'm just gonna go play this for a long time. and you can watch me play it over on twitch.tv/giveandtake. In fact, if I plan this right, I should be streaming this as this video is going live, so you can immediately go and have a look at it. Me playing the game on twitch.tv/giveandtake. Thank you for watching. I'm gay. Oh, that's not true.